Good. All right. Starting to fill up a little bit now. That's good. So if we haven't met before, my name is Wes. Scott's the normal guy that's up here, but he's out at the beach with our youth. So I hope you'll keep them in your thoughts and prayers as they go through a time where they try to seek and search and find the Lord in their own place. So last week, Scott started back into the summer series of the story. You know, we're going through the story of the whole Bible in sort of chronological order. And he talked about that time that was in between, the in-between time between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And he gave a whole lot of historical background, and he talked about history and who was in charge and where the land was kind of moving around and who was taking control. And I'm sure if you're into that kind of thing, it was really, really good for you. I'm not so much a history buff, so not so much for me. But today we're going to talk about the next thing that happens in chronological order of the Bible, which would be Jesus is born, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about the birth of Christ. We're going to do that out of the Gospels of Matthew today. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's not Christmas. We can't talk about the birth of Christ when it's not Christmas. It's not going to happen. And I get that. But it's going to be okay. We're going to get through it. Now, I'm not so much a Christmas person, or well, I didn't used to be anyway. I used to really hate Christmas. But now I'm kind of starting to get to where I like it again. And I like it again because I have kids. And so now that I have kids, I get to see, I get to give them gifts, and I get to watch them open their gifts and everything, and get to see the excitement on their face, and it's a lot of fun as a father to be able to give something to your child that they can appreciate and play with. And I think you can probably identify with that. So how many of you remember your favorite gift from when you were a kid? Your favorite Christmas gift? One person remembers. Really? Okay, here we go. All right, a couple of you. So when I was a little boy, I was probably like 3 or 4. I can't believe I'm about to tell this story. I was about 3 or 4, and my mom and dad gave me this little BB gun. Now, a lot of y'all know that I love guns. Like, it's a big part of my life. I'm not a murderer or anything like that. I like guns. Anyway, so they gave me this BB gun, and it was like the coolest present I'd ever gotten in my life, right? They come with these little targets, and you get to set them up and shoot the little targets down in your house, and they're little rubber BBs, so it didn't hurt anything, and this was awesome. Now, I was a 4-year-old, 3 or 4, so if you've got a 4-year-old boy, anything teeny tiny, where does it go? Who said nose? Guess where the little BBs went? I thought it was the coolest thing to take the little BB and stick it up there and just, right, and shoot it out. Okay, so that I did this, and I did this for days and days and days. And one time I got it shoved up in there. It wasn't coming out. Okay, so I'm freaking out. I'm 4 years old. I'm freaking out that I've got this BB jammed up into my sinus cavity somewhere. I can feel it. It's up here by my eyeball, right? But I can't get it out. So what do? I go to mom, right? Because you go to mom when something's wrong. So I go to mom. Mom, I got this BB up my nose. Her first thing. You what? I got this BB up my nose, Mom. So she freaks out. She calls my stepdad. My stepdad's like, all right, we got to take him to the hospital. So we all go to the hospital. And when I say we all go to the hospital, you got to understand that my parents divorced when I was little, and then they both remarried. So I had 2 moms and 2 dads. Okay? So all 4 of my parents take me to the hospital, and I'm spazzing out. My stepmom's a doctor. She's trying to get this BB out of my nose. She can't get it out. So they have to take me to the hospital, and 12 nurses pile on top of me because I'm freaking out. And so 12 nurses pile on top of me, and they strap me down to this board, and then this surgeon comes in with these tweezers that are this long. He's pulls the thing out of there, right? How many of you moms know where that BB is right now? Y'all scrapbook? Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't seen it. She's still got the BB, and because she still has the BB, this story will never die, right? She is not going to let me live this down. It's not going to happen. Do you guys remember, that's the best part? What's that? Oh, yeah. Anyway. You can tell that later. Okay, so how many of you guys remember your first trip to the hospital, to the ER? Everybody? All right, how about the first time, if you're a parent, the first time you took your kid to the hospital? That's a rough day, right? The first time you take your kid to the hospital. So I don't know, about a month ago, we had to take our oldest son, Raven, to the hospital. And what happened was we were all outside kind of playing, and he had made this little girlfriend next door. And she was outside, so he wants to run over there and see her. And they had these real sketchy steps at their front door that they were like fixing up and stuff. So he's running over there, and he's all excited. And he trips and he falls. And he falls and he hits his head on the corner of a brick, like right there. And man, it's just like instantly blood, like everywhere, all down his face, on his shirt, like just, and he's like, and screaming and stuff. So he's running back over to the house, and I'm in the garage with my other son, and I see him coming across our yard, and there's just blood, like everywhere. And I'm like, oh man, and he's screaming and screaming and screaming. So I scoop him up, and I get him all wiped off, and bandage his head up, and we wrap him up real good, and we take him to the hospital. And the birth of Jesus is kind of like that. You see, the world was in this place where it was crying out for a Savior. It just wanted the pain to stop. All through the Old Testament, we see these prophets and these kings, these judges come through, and they're trying to make things right in the world. We see Israel led out of Egypt and slavery, but things still aren't right. And the world is crying out. Galatians 4 and 5 says this. It says, but when the set time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. You see, God sent his Son at just the right time. At just the right time, when everything needed to be saved, God sent his Son. And it's no mistake that you're here today and that I'm up here today in front of you. See, because some of you right now, you're like my son. You're screaming inside, crying out in pain in your own life, in silence, and no one knows about it. And I know this is true. You might say, oh, well, no, that's not me. Okay, well, it is, and I'm going to prove it to you. See, everybody thinks that my wife and I, we have this, like, really golden relationship. Like, everything's perfect, and I hear all the time, well, you have such a beautiful family, and everything looks like it's going so good for you, and your family's so happy, and you guys look like you love each other so much, okay? Well, about a month ago, we almost separated. True story, okay? And now we're in counseling together, okay? And it's not going to be long before we're in counseling, like, individually, because we've got so much of our own junk that we need to deal with. So I know that it's easy to cover up whatever it is inside of you, okay? You can put on a mask and make it look however you want to, I've got issues, and I've told you before I've got anger issues, right? But that's not the only issue. I struggle with lust, right? I struggle with money and with trust. I know what it's like to be insecure or to be ashamed of my past. I know what it is to be addicted. And I'm willing to bet that most of you in this room probably can feel that same thing. You know where I'm coming from. Now, I hate statistics, I really do. I hate to throw them on you like this, but just to help you see where I'm coming from, we're going to use some today. So 1 in 4 women, okay? 1 in 4 women has been sexually assaulted at some point in their life. My mom's one of them, okay? 1 in 3 men are addicted, okay? Couldn't stop if they wanted to, addicted to pornography. I was one of those guys, okay? And men between the ages of 45 and 65 living in the United States are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than any other demographic in the world. Now, I'm not between 45 and 65, but I know what that cold steel feels like pressed against my temple. So I think the point's kind of clear. We could go on and talk about all kinds of different subjects if we wanted to, but the point's clear that something is broken here. We are not okay, even if you think you are, even if you want to be. You and I, we're crying out for the Savior, for this relief, for someone to come and pick us up from where we are and take us to where we need to be. And that's why we're talking about the birth of Christ today. We're talking about God sending his Son into a dying world to pick it up and carry it to where it needs to be, to bring it back to life, you know? And not only that, but to bring us back to life. You know, the Bible says that Jesus came not so that we may only have life, but so that we can have life to the fullest life that we can have. So let's take a look at this in the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew chapter 1, verse 18. Now, the first 17 verses of Matthew is the genealogy of Jesus, right? So like his dad and their mom and his dad and like on and on and on, okay? Don't discount that. I believe that everything is in the Bible for a reason, and the genealogy of Jesus is no mistake. It's there for a reason too. And if you want to dig into it, I think you'll find how God uses messed up people to bring his plan into being. And that's why the genealogy is there. We don't have time for that today. So Matthew 18 says this. Matthew chapter 1, verse 18 says this. This is how the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph. But before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he had considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what she has conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him, and took Mary home as his wife. But he did not consummate their marriage until she gave birth to a son, and he gave him the name Jesus. So here we see this story about how Jesus comes about, this immaculate conception, right? And now, put yourself in the shoes of Joseph for just a second, okay? You've got a woman who you're engaged to, and all of a sudden she's pregnant. Bad news, right? Now, you can probably think that Joseph is a little ticked off. I mean, I would be. And he probably doesn't trust Mary too much either. And he probably just wants to be rid of her and get her out of his life, right? If you've been cheated on, you know what that's like. Just go away, you know? But he doesn't. He has this dream, right? He decides he's going to do all these things. He's going to divorce her quietly. He's going to get her out of his life. He's going to be done with it. But then he lays down and goes to sleep and he has a dream. And in the dream, the angel comes to him and says, hey, this is from God. You're to name him Jesus. You're to stay with this woman. That's what you got to do. Now, if I'm Joseph, I don't know if I'm trusting this, right? But he does. I think that Joseph probably was a lot like you and I. You know, he's got a lot of issues, man. I mean, he had to be angry, and he couldn't have trusted Mary. I wouldn't. There's no way. But you know, we don't really know how Joseph felt. You know, the Bible doesn't tell us how Joseph felt. But it does tell us what he did, right? So I got a couple questions for you. Go back to verse 24. It says, when Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him and took Mary home as his wife. Okay, so did Joseph obey God? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. When did Joseph obey God? When he woke up. Okay. So he had the dream, he woke up, he did what God said. Immediately. Immediate obedience. Joseph woke up and immediately he did what God said. And for some of you, man, that's what you got to do. Immediate obedience. I wonder how much of the pain in our lives could be avoided if we just immediately obeyed God. If we just immediately did what he said, you know, instead of just kind of tossing it around and going back and forth and playing with sin. If we just immediately obeyed God. If we just stopped looking at porn now, today. If we just told the truth about whatever today. If we got control of our finances, or at least started today. If we just put that bottle and those pills down today. If we went and got counseling today, if we would confess today, whatever it is, it needs to stop today. And I know what you're thinking. Okay? Addiction, they can't be broken overnight. That's a process. It's going to take a long time. And yes, I agree, it is. But you can start today. How about this? There's too much stress in my life. I got 3 kids, and I got a job that's hard, and got all these things that I got to do, and I got to come preach on Sunday, and I got to lead a group on Thursday night. I'm talking about me now. So I need that drink to chill out at night and relax. And, that's my space. How about this? I've got too much debt to even try to get control of my finances. It's too deep. There's no way out. We can't do it. My job is so hard. My childhood was messed up. How about this? If my wife would just keep me satisfied, then I wouldn't need to, right? And I know that stings, but it's the truth. And look, I know that there's some legitimate pain in this room, okay? I'm not trying to discount that. Like, I know that, some of you had bad childhoods, and mine wasn't great either. And I know that, people have hurt you, and I'm not trying to minimize those things. But what I am saying is that there are areas in your life that you're choosing to disobey God. You're making an active choice, and so do I, to disobey what the Creator of the world laid out as a plan for your life and mine. And if we would just immediately obey what God said, I think a lot of that pain would go away, or at least start to. The next thing we've got to look at here comes from the 2nd chapter of Matthew, verses 13 through 15. It says, when they had gone, speaking of the Magi, or the wise men, right? When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, get up, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child and kill him. So he got up, he took the child and his mother during the night and left Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. So again, after the Magi leave, Joseph has another dream, right? And in this dream, he's getting a warning, right? Because Herod's trying to kill Jesus. So what does he do? Immediately gets up, takes Jesus away into Egypt. Immediate obedience. Again, Joseph, immediate obedience. So Herod's plan was to murder Jesus, but that wasn't God's plan. And it's not God's plan for your life either. This is the second time we see Joseph make a decision to obey God. Even though things are still hard, even though somebody's still searching and trying to kill Jesus, this wasn't the end of the trial in Joseph's life. He still has this woman and this son that doesn't really belong to him, but he's adopted, and he's going through all these things with Herod trying to kill him and all this, and he keeps continuing to obey God. So they run off to Egypt. Now, how many of you know how long they were in Egypt? I didn't know either, right? So verse 15 says where he stayed till the death of Herod. So they left and went to Egypt, and they stayed there till Herod died. Now I couldn't figure out how long this was. So I did some digging. And what I found is that it was somewhere between a couple of months and up to 2 years. Okay? So anywhere from like 3 months to up to 2 years. Could you imagine running away? You've got a brand new wife. You haven't even got to go on your honeymoon yet because you got a baby. Baby doesn't really belong to you. And now you got to go hide away from your family and your friends and all that stuff in a foreign land where you don't know anybody. You got to go get a new job. You don't speak the language and all that stuff. And you haven't heard from God for 2 years. But you stay, right? Joseph continued to obey God for up to 2 years. You have to persevere. You have to keep trying. You have to keep digging. And that's the thing. Hebrews says, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. It's perseverance. It's continuing to choose what God says for your life. I found that there's only one quick and easy thing that has any value in our life. Anybody know what it is? Probably not. It took me a little bit to think of it. Baptism. Baptism is the one thing that is quick and easy to do that has any value in your life, okay? Everything else is hard and takes a long time. It takes a long time, man. Counseling for your marriage, That ain't easy. If you've been in it, you know it's not easy. But it's worth it. Think about the payoff in the end. Fighting that addiction is not easy, but the payoff is huge for generations and generations. So perseverance, keep trying, keep digging. Matthew chapter 2, 19-23 says this. After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph and said, "Get up and take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who are trying to take the child's life are dead." So he got up, he took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he had heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in the place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what God had said through the prophets, that he would be called a Nazarene. So Joseph has another dream, and in the dream, God tells him, go back to Israel. So Joseph gets up again, obeys God again after maybe 2 years of not hearing from him, trusting in the Lord. He gets up and immediately takes his family back to Israel, what God said to do. I wish I could be this guy, man, because Joseph's a trooper at this point. I don't think I could make it that far. But he gets up and he takes his family back to Israel. And they're on the way, they're on the journey, and they're probably walking, or maybe they got rich, so they got a donkey or something. And they're on the way, and they hear people talking, and they say, oh, Herod's boy, he took over Israel, right? You heard about Herod's boy, right? He's pretty scary. He might even be worse than Herod, and he still hates Jesus. It's only been 2 years, and he remembers. He remembers all that stuff that Daddy said about Jesus, and he knows Jesus is going to take over, so he's going to kill him. So Joseph gets freaked out because he already knows that God doesn't want Jesus dead, right? So what's he do? He sleeps on it. I like to sleep on it. You guys like to sleep on it? Got a tough decision to make? I'm going to sleep on that one. Yeah, it's a good thing to do. Take some time. Pump the brakes, okay? Let's figure out what to do. So Joseph sleeps on it, and during his sleep, he has a dream, another dream. And in that dream, it says he is warned. It doesn't say what he was warned. It doesn't say what God said. It doesn't say anything like that. It doesn't say a direction, nothing. It just says he was warned. So since he was warned, Joseph decides to take his family to Galilee. And because he went to Galilee, Jesus was called a Nazarene. And that fulfilled prophecy. So let's put this together, okay? God told Joseph over here to go to Israel. In the Old Testament, God prophesied that Jesus would be called a Nazarene. So it would seem that God told Joseph to do something that was against prophecy, right? It looks like God said one thing here and then said something else over here. Well, sometimes God uses our circumstances to shape who we are. You know what I mean? Have you ever looked back and seen, well, I was there so that I could go over here? That happened to me, We came to this church I guess it's been almost 3 years now. Because I had in mind that I was going to intern here for 2 years, and I was going to work here full time for a year, and then I was going to quit my job, and I was going to uproot my whole family, and we were going to move to Wilmington, and we were going to plant a church. That was the plan. That was what my wife and I both felt like God had told us, and it was clear. I had never been more clear on anything in my life. And we didn't do any of that stuff. Okay, I haven't really interned. I've learned a lot, but I'm not on staff. None of that stuff has happened. And if you tried to get me to plant a church today, I would rather shoot myself. There is zero desire in me to do a church plant right now. And it's not because I hate this church. I love this church. We're still here because I love this church. I love God's people. I love getting up and being able to speak to you. But I know that if I was to go and try to plant a church right now, it would kill my family. It would just flat out rip us apart. And I don't have the personality to support it. I can't be like Scott and talk to all of you guys and then go home and be fine. I'll be tired after that. It's just not my personality. But God's got us here for a reason, Now his plan, my perception of his plan, what I can see of his plan has changed. But God's plan's always the same. It never changes, God always wants the same thing for you in the end. His end game never changes. What you see of it might change, like your perception. And that's what happened to Joseph here. His perception of what God wanted him to do changed. And God does that to us from time to time to take us from where we are and get us where we need to be. Because if he said in the beginning, oh, I'm going to take you from here where you just got saved as a Christian in this other church and then bring you here and you're going to start preaching probably once every 2 or 3 months, I would have said, nope. We're not doing that. But here I am. If God would have told me the end game back then, it wouldn't happen. Change of plans. So some of you right now, you're in this place in your life, and something's got to change, right? Like you're in a job, and you got to leave that job. We've had people in this church that's happened to. You know, it's time to go. I got to be out. I don't know where I'm going, but it's time to be done. Some of you, maybe you're in this relationship, and that relationship's ran its course. And it might be a friendship that needs to die because it's a bad influence or they're dragging you down, or maybe it's a romantic relationship that it's just time for it to end because it's just over. Maybe some of you, like, you've got way too many responsibilities. Like, you don't have time for your kids anymore. You don't have time for your family anymore. And those things that all may have been good at one time are now hurting your family. And it's just time for a change, you know? It's good to move on every once in a while. And I don't really know what that looks like in your life. I mean, that's like a case-by-case thing. I can't say no one should coach soccer because that's not true, you know? But for some of you, like, soccer's sinful at this point. I don't even know if soccer's going on right now, is it? See how much I like sports. Anyway, here's the best advice that I can give you on this, and this is not like a biblical principle or any, you know, just this is advice. Seek wise counsel. Talk to your accountability, your discipleship partners. Talk to whoever it is that's in your life. Talk to your spouse. You know, talk to your brothers and sisters. Talk to your connection group, which starts this Sunday, and John's leading it. Right? Get in one of those things because you need these people in your life. Seek wise counsel. So let's recap a little bit. The first point was this: immediate obedience. Obey God when He says to obey Him. Now, anything else short of that is sinful. Immediate obedience. Second thing is this: perseverance. Keep trying, keep digging, don't give up. Second thing is this: change of plans. Sometimes it's time for a change. We watched this video a little bit ago, and the guy's name who was speaking, his name was Matty Montgomery, and he's in this band called For Today. I really like this band. I like heavy metal music, and he's the lead singer of that band. And you know, I really look up to him. I look up to the way that he lives his life and stuff. If I can get the band to go ahead and come back down. And during the video, he talked about, you know, how he carves wood. He whittles, you know, and he thinks about, you know, God does this to us. So I know that today, like, you might have felt the sting of that knife digging in a little bit. That's why I told you the story about the BB up my nose. So maybe it wouldn't hurt so bad. But sometimes God uses that knife to cut away anything that is not perfect in you, anything that is not His plan for your life. So as we have communion and as we worship together, I want you to think about whatever it is. And if you need to talk to someone, you know, I'm here. Brian's right there. John's another great person for you to speak to. Come and talk to us if you need to, if you want to. If you don't, that's fine. But please just consider these things as we have communion and as we worship together. Father God, thank you so much for this day and this time that we get to spend together. God, I pray that